Welcome back to Reimagine 2020. I'm Yonah Hochhauser, and today I'm glad to be joined by Kosala Hemachandra, founder and CEO of MyEtherWallet. Kosala, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Yonah.
Now, first off, you want to give our viewers a little background of kind of who you are and how you got into blockchain?
Yeah. So that's actually an interesting story. So I way back when I was when I was small, I was small at some point in time. So I heard of Bitcoin, but like back then I thought, okay, this is just a scam. Like this is in 2010 something, right? So this is just a scam like most of us. And then I didn't even really get into it. But towards the end, during my senior year, I got into Bitcoin, but not as like actual coin or cryptocurrency, but like the technology behind it, because my major was in computer engineering. So it was part of it. So I was really intrigued by how the blockchain works, what decentralization is, how the cryptocurrencies are working, all that. And luckily, around the same time, that's when Vitalik and Gavin released the yellow paper for Ethereum. So I stumbled upon it, and then I started reading about it, and then immediately it clicked in my head that, okay, this is gonna be like a game changer. This is taking Bitcoin to like 1000x better, like taking to 1000 steps ahead. And ever since then, I kind of like followed the development cycles, the pre-sale, everything that came out, like the test network and all that. And then I wrote my first smart contract on the test network to help out the people who are trying to attack it, and then figure out ways to exploit it, and so that it can be fixed before the mainnet launch. So all that happened, and then fast forward, they released the mainnet. So Ethereum released the mainnet, and surprisingly, like Reddit was the only platform to talk about anything in Ethereum back then. And surprisingly, so many people, as soon as released the mainnet, that's when the ETH actually had a value, like started to get a value. And every single pre-sale investor, and then like almost like all the new developers, they were struggling on doing basic tasks like sending a transaction, or like even unlocking their wallet, because we didn't have hardware wallets back then. It was just a keystore file. And they were having all these issues, and only tool that existed back then to accomplish these tasks was a command line. So it just takes it to the next level. It's like, if it's already difficult, it's like make it exponentially difficult, right? So to a lot of people. And I knew how to do this in back of my head. So I put together a small interface. Back then, you had to understand, like, I was going to school full-time and also working full-time. Wow. So back, like when I got home, so whenever I get home, I just like code a little bit, put a simple interface, and then I released it. So this was right after like 10 days since the mainnet. So everything, this happened really fast. And obviously initially people were like, okay, I'm not uploading my keystore file. What if you're a scammer? You might run away with my like funds and all that. I'm like, okay, look, like this is open source. And so you can obviously, like the exact code that runs on your browser is the code that I'm open sourcing, and it's publicly available. And it took a while, but then it fell into tracks, and ever since then, my wallet grew with Ethereum, and then I was there like since the beginning. So we are like one of the very first Ethereum-based companies that still is existing.
And that's I think I think that's a classic story encompassing the success of Ethereum, is that it kind of goes hand in hand with its community. That, it is so community driven. And like you said, they launched a mainnet, and even the people who are involved are excited. And yet there's this problem. There is no real easy wallet solution. Someone from the community like you go ahead, you develop on it, and that just unlocks tremendous potential. And we've seen that again and again with Ethereum, where it is so community driven. What do you think it is about Ethereum? I mean, especially, I understand early on, when it was just kind of, Bitcoin, Ethereum as those main ones, but what was it about Ethereum that back then and even till today just draws such a strong community of developers that are committed to developing on it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one thing that I did not like explain, like when I was talking before, is that the reason why I was really intrigued by Ethereum community is because like I looked at Bitcoin back then, and it was so everywhere. Like everyone's arguing about everything, and like they cannot make up their mind. So that's the like you it's already like you can see it because there are so many different forks in Bitcoin, because people could not come to an agreement. So basically they created its own fork and then they went their own way. I mean, which is good in a way, because that's what decentralization is all about, right? Like if you cannot come to an agreement, and if you have enough people, you can obviously fork it and then create your own chain and then go that way. But like from an outsider's perspective and from a person who was just getting into the whole ecosystem, it was kind of messy. So it was everywhere and did not have a goal. That's how I felt like in Bitcoin. And then I looked at Ethereum and the community, everyone was like behind it. They were first like extremely educated, like mostly professors and like lecturers and like universities. They were already doing research on it. And from as a point from a like a university student perspective, from a university student, that's because that's what I'm so used to seeing, right? Like seeing university professors, like everyone, like scholarly people are actively engaged in development. So that what intrigued me to get into Ethereum. And ever since then, it was all about like these, like the connections between them. So we had the DevCon. So like we go over there and then we connect with everyone, and it becomes its little own family. So it's not as much now because there are too many people. But before, like I'm talking like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, everyone used to know everyone in Ethereum space. Right. That's not the case anymore, but like that's where it used to be. So that's the cluster of people that grew into a lot more people now, a lot more groups now. But at the end of the day, if I personally have to like figure out, okay, there's a new project happening and who's behind it, you can always go back and see that person. Like there's always someone from that small cluster of people that we used to know. And you can always go back to them and then get more information. They'll be extremely helpful, and people are actually extremely friendly inside this community. It's you have to get into it in order to understand it.
Yeah, that really, like I said, adds so much value to it. We see that, across the board in crypto. It's so community driven. Let's focus a little bit on MyEtherWallet. You guys were the first, and you guys, like you said, you grew with Ethereum and were super successful, but you haven't rested on your laurels. You do continue to innovate. You guys recently released the ETHVM, a new open source blockchain explorer to rival Etherscan. What does that enable the user to do? Why is that even better than rival Etherscan?
Etherscan. So that's like I have to change that a little bit, because that wasn't our purpose of actually becoming a competitor to Etherscan. I personally know Matt, the founder of Etherscan, and like we are friends. And I mean that's the other thing, right? Like it's about giving choices to people. And not, so that's why I don't think of other like competing wallets also as competitors, because we are innovating in different ways. And at the end of the day, people will get a choice, like, should I use this or should I use that? Okay, this fits me better, so I'm going to use this. But always there will be a group of people who always go for the other product. So and so that's why I wanted to change that like the view a little bit, because the main reason why we created ETHVM is because we, through our customer support team, started to get a whole bunch of requests on, hey, this is like little technical, like how do I look at my account, my Ethereum account, what it is, or like what are internal transactions, how I distinguish between these, like how did I get these transaction, how did my like balance increase? So when we looked at it, we were like, okay, that's obviously a problem. That's our like motto or ethos since the beginning, like, I figure out the problem and then come up with a solution so that bottleneck does not exist into onboarding users into Ethereum. So that's basically the main reason. So, and also the second reason is we released our new wallet application, which is our mobile application. And in order for that to work, we had to aggregate all the data related to Ethereum. So while we were doing this and then seeing that problem, we were like, okay, it's why can't we just put together a simple UI, because we already have that data. We are going to put together a UI that's friendly for this specific group of people who are struggling and understanding a blockchain explorer from a technical standpoint. So that's basically what we did. We came up with Ethereum, we released it. I have to say, it took longer, way longer than I expected because of all the problems, especially like the amount of data and Ethereum grows exponentially. It's not the same amount of data this year versus like next year. It's like grows exponentially. So all that handling all that data and everything took a little longer than I personally anticipated, but I'm glad that we released it at the end and it's getting really nice feedback. And this is not the end for Ethereum. Like we'll keep on innovating, adding new features and making it better.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you mentioned this fact that Ethereum keeps on growing, exponentially. It's and especially now, it really seems to be driven. At least right now, the hot topic is DeFi. That seems to be really exploding in popularity, in use, and in value. I would say most importantly, and on one hand, that's great. It's proving how great Ethereum is to develop on and to utilize. But on the other hand, it's exposing some of its weaknesses, including its inability to scale sufficiently to support this demand. I mean, gas prices are sky high. How does that, from a couple of angles, I mean, first from the wallet angle, what kind of feedback putting aside DeFi for a second, just on a user who wants to use Ethereum as they have been using Ethereum, what has been the feedback from the user base in terms of, hey, if I just want to send some Ethereum from this wallet to my friend's wallet, it's going to cost me outrageous fees.
Yeah. So people are definitely unhappy about it. But like from a wallet point of view, we are a little bit safe because unlike some of the other wallets, we did not like some of the other wallets out there it's handling the gas fees for the user. So those wallets are way more affected than MyEtherWallet because now they have to handle the gas fees, and then some of them are offloading it to the user itself, which is harder on the user because they are so used to doing transactions without paying a fee, and then suddenly now they have to pay a fee. So they're not understanding the concept of fees. So you have to explain them a little bit about that. But from our perspective, like from MyEtherWallet side of things, there's a huge warning. Like whenever gas prices are crazy high, we put a warning in there saying, hey, the gas prices are high right now. So which means higher transaction fees. Maybe you want to wait a little bit, unless, because you can always come back unless it's like a very time critical transaction. You can always come back when the gas prices are low and then send out the transaction. But Ethereum thrives on almost instant transaction getting mined. So almost instantly, like within 14 seconds, right? That was the big deal breaker compared to Bitcoin. You take an hour, or like at this point in time, I have no idea what that is, but usually it used to be an hour, but maybe it's more now. Right. But that's not the case anymore.
Yeah. So how do you see Ethereum scaling? Is it going to be a layer 2 solution, plasma sidechain, ZK rollups? I mean, everyone and their mother seems to think they have the solution. This is the solution that's better than that solution that doesn't have this problem. You've kind of been there from the beginning. You've seen Ethereum grow. You're in touch, like you said, with the community who are working on this. In your view, what is going to be the best scaling solution?
That's a really tough question because obviously there's on one hand, there's the POS that's coming out, right? But it's the beacon chain. It's only like the phase 0, like the first step towards full proof of stake, which will supposedly handle like more than 20,000 transactions per second. So I totally believe in that. But if you ask me when that's going to come out, I have no idea.
They've been saying it for years. I've been hearing v3.0 proof of stake sharding for years, even before I even heard of DeFi.
Trust me, I know. I mean, it was part of the yellow paper, or like it was part of the initial pitch, right? Oh, we'll be having POS in like 4 years, but it's at least 4 years away. I'm gonna say it out loud now. It's not even close. So in short term, the only scaling solution that I see are layer 2 solutions. Like, for example, like projects like Loopring with ZK rollup that you mentioned, it's pretty amazing. And I'm personally looking into that and how that can benefit like new users and how we can integrate that and then bring the benefits to our user base. So in the short term, I really recommend all projects to look into these layer 2 solutions, because I don't think the gas prices will go down. Like this might be the new norm. Like this might become the new norm, and then like the gas prices might always be more than 150 or like whatever the GWA right now. A very good example will be, even I personally thought at some point in time, because like once a week I have to run this script to do some transactions. And over the weekend, I looked at it. I'm like, okay, the gas price is 200 GWA now. So I'm just going to wait until it hits 2030. That's like the normal, right?
Yeah.
It never did. It still didn't.
Wow.
Like this was 3 weeks ago. So
wow.
So I had to run the script with like 150 GWA or 200 GWA gas prices, and it costs a lot. But that's what that led me to do, is to figure out ways to minimize and optimize the script so that it doesn't have to waste that much on gas. See, that's why I think, okay, the pressure is good, because it is a reason for people to innovate. Because now, like 6 months ago, this problem did not exist, or at least this problem wasn't as big as what it is now. But now that this problem exists, it is pressuring people, a lot of teams, to figure out solutions to overcome this. So that's a good thing, in my opinion.
Yeah. And for sure, I mean, the success and the congestion of the network is definitely pressuring people to look for layer 2 solutions. But I wonder if Ethereum's massive success, especially with the value that's been gained in DeFi, has slowed down the adoption of Ethereum 2.0. Like you mentioned, I'll explain why. Like you mentioned at the beginning, you know, you joined Ethereum because it was kind of this kind of research tried out. You know, it's all professors and universities, and we could innovate. You just wrote some code in your free time, because the stakes were so low, because it wasn't worth a lot. So I'll put out a wallet. People want to use it. Why not? It'll be cool. Let's see what we can build. But now that there's so much value locked into Ethereum, do you feel like the Ethereum core developers who you know, now they're kind of way more cautious on switching to 2.0 because they don't want to mess up with the value? If there wasn't a lot of value on the system, 2.0, we'd see it tomorrow, right?
Yep, I totally agree with you. I'm totally with you on that point of view, because the stakes are so high right now. So even a single line of code, a single dot, or like a single failure can bring the whole Ethereum down, and which is going to be devastating for a lot of people. That wasn't the case back then. It was like 10 cents per ETH at some point in time, right? Remember those days? So it's like, okay, sure, fine, we'll do a fork tomorrow. It's going to be fine. It's not going to be a big deal. And everyone is not as cautious. I don't want to say that, but I'm pretty sure like they were cautious, but they are way more cautious right now in innovating and like coming up with new upgrades, because now you have to look at it from way too many angles to make sure it's safe. So definitely, I agree with you. It has slowed down the innovation side of Ethereum. But I mean, that was a bit expected. What if we can go back in time? What I would recommend is to do the innovations faster than what we did before, so that by this time we are ready with POS, or at least like on the way. Like we are on track to have POS on time, or like we at least have a good enough deadline.
And of course, you have to remember, this is still so brand new. I mean, even DeFi is brand new, Ethereum is brand new. We're so early on that even if it does take another 5 years for proof of stake, it will still be, this whole thing will be in its infancy, and that's totally fine with me. The market will always find solutions. Now, I'm assuming that, you know, in the crypto sphere, there's a saying, not your keys, not your crypto. And it's kind of this idea that if you're not holding your own private keys, then you're holding nothing. You know, then the money's out of your hands. And that's one of the big promises that crypto holds is this idea of self-sufficiency. If I can hold my money, if I'm not trusting the bank, I'm not trusting somebody else. And now I'm assuming because you started, a non-custodial wallet, that you do believe in not your keys, not your crypto, correct?
Yeah. No, we that's like still our main priority. Like whenever we look at a problem, like I told you, we see a problem, then we'll come up with a solution, but we will never come up with a solution that's not non-custodial. That's like our first and highest priority in all of our solutions, because we strongly believe in that saying. Like we want people to have control of their funds. Like if obviously we can give users a way better user experience if we control users' keys. I mean, that's how most of the centralized exchanges works, right? So you just go to them and then give your funds, deposit your funds, and then they can give you an amazing user experience. Because at the end of the day, from a back-end perspective, they can do all these like the extremely difficult things in an extremely simple manner. But that's not the case when you're controlling your keys, because we are offloading. So we have a balanced user experience with non-custodial side of it, or like the security of your wallet. So, but that doesn't stop us from still giving you a better user experience, because it pressure us to come up with simpler ways, better solutions, right? And I just read, which is really sad, because there was a universal login application, or like a framework worked on by Alex Van Sande. He was one of the very first like co-developers in Ethereum, and because of the gas prices, he has to like turn the switch off on that whole project. Yeah, which really is not that great, because it used to be a really good onboarding platform, because users now have to worry about just one set, and then they can interact with all these different dApps with different accounts. It was a universal login in a way, but unfortunately that has to go away now because of the gas prices. But still, it's not going to stop people from innovating, including MyEtherWallet team, because we are constantly trying to figure out like the better ways, better solutions, so that still you are the person who's in control of your own funds.
I'm on team not your keys, not your crypto as well. I'm right there with you, but it does there is this big let's say clash between this recognizing the idea that people should be holding their own currencies and should be empowered. In my view, it's empowering, but on the other hand, if I really want to get my grandma to use crypto, she cannot she's calling me every day. I forgot my email password. I forgot the Wi-Fi password. And there's a reason why even Gmail, even, all our major, let's say, accounts that control our lives, our bank accounts that have our funds, they have forget password functions, because the average consumer just, forgets their password, loses their stuff. So how do we get by this? How do we combine this idea that we want people to be in custody of their own keys, hold their own private keys, but at the same time, and have those keys be secure, and at the same time, recognize this reality that if we really want the masses to adopt this, they're going to forget their keys. They're going to lose their keys. They're going to need some type of solution. So far, what is the best solution to that, and what do you think we can improve upon to adhere to this?
Yeah. So this is also probably why. This is also one of the main reasons why the mnemonic phrases exist, because you're supposed to write them down in a piece of paper, and then store it somewhere. So at the end of the day, even if you lose your password or whatever, you still can recover all your wallets, right? But I right now that's like the best solution. But I'm pretty sure, or like I'm more than sure, that we can innovate and then figure out a different solution. A good and upcoming solution that I'm really interested in looking at is the social recovery. It's been done already, but it's not as simple as it should be. So basically what it does, it'll assign multiple people as the trusted friends. So let's say it's like 3 out of 7 or 4 out of 7. You have to have at least 4 out of 7 people say, okay, you really lost your key. So it's time for you to recover your wallet to a new key. So that's how it's done right now. I mean, it's already out there. But then again, when we were talking about it internally, we had this big concern of it's all about privacy in crypto. So how many of your friends you want to tell this is your account?
Yeah.
Right. This is how much ETH I'm holding.
Right.
So still, yeah, there are some downsides to it, but
and even more than that, do you want the system knowing that these are my friends? I mean, it's two-sided. It's two-sided.
Exactly.
That goes both
exactly.
ways.
Very good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it seems like people, every day we're interacting with our phones, and it seems like people at this point are comfortable with the idea that their finger unlocks their device. Their finger gives them access to, I know Apple right now does the Face ID, but let's say with masks, people are going back to the finger. Do you think there's a way where we could, somehow attach our fingerprint to our private key, have our fingerprint be the private key?
Biometrics, yeah. So that's actually one way. Well, the problem with that is it's the way that both Apple and Android and all those phones work. It's not so every time you scan your fingerprint, it's not an identical match. It'll be like 90% match, right? 95% match, which is for a match, it's good enough. But in order for you to derive a private key from it, it has to be like 100% match every single time. So that's the bottleneck over there. But the way that a lot of actually, like, because Samsung has their blockchain phone, Apple has a secure enclave built in, Android does the same thing. So they unlock, so the way that they recommend you to use the biometrics in order to derive keys and all that is to make use of that secure enclave, or like the cryptographically, like it'll generate keys cryptographically based on the fingerprint. But they still want you to have that mnemonic phrase. Like, for example, the blockchain phone by Samsung. I think that's also part of every single Samsung phone now.
Yeah.
I didn't test it in recently, but even they still use mnemonic, even though they have like biometrics and all that to unlock it. And also the new wallet mobile application that we developed, and we were actually one of the first people to make use of the blockchain, Samsung blockchain phone. They had they announced it and all. So even the way that we use it, the keys are stored in that secure enclave, but the biometrics are used to unlock the enclave, not actually to derive the private key. So there are some issues with that, but I have to say, I know a team who are actually working on like biometrics as private keys, and even your heart rate as private keys, also retina scan. So it'll be there. I don't know when it'll come out, but there are some developments on that side of things. But so I'm really looking forward for it. So one day for sure there'll be like, you just have to go, it'll be one of those sci-fi films. You just have to go to a screen and then scan your eye, and then you make the payment and you're good to go. And you still hold funds for your keys, right? I mean, hold the keys for your funds.
The keys are in the eye of the key holder, I guess.
Right?
Yeah,
nice.
That's it. We'll print some T-shirts. We'll get them for you. It seems like, especially now that we're so early on in this technology. So we talk about the abilities of the blockchain. This blockchain does X amount of transactions per second. This blockchain is this secure. This one has consensus. But at the end of the day, the average consumer doesn't really care about the abilities of the back end protocol that they're doing transactions on. They just want a user interface and an experience that is quick, easy, cheap, safe. And I think that was something that the Ethereum wallets got very right. Like MyEtherWallet, MetaMask. I mean, these things, you guys made it so easy to open up a wallet to manage the funds, that it really lowered the barrier of entry to crypto for many people. When you compare, other wallets for Bitcoin and hardware wallets that really were more of a headache to use. how much, how far do you think we are on the wallet side of things? Not on the blockchain or on the use cases, but just on the wallet interface side of things, that are how far are we and how close are we to mass adoption on that end? Could my grandmother, let's say the blockchain worked just fine in transactions and she could go to the store and they'd accept it. But on the wallet end, could she go and use MyEtherWallet? Is it that easy to use?
No, it's not.
What's holding it back?
Yeah. So when I talk about mass adoption, like I do get asked this question a lot, right? Like when my grandma can go and use Ethereum. We are definitely not there yet. Like you have to think of Ethereum as like it's in its infancy, right? This is like when internet first came out. I'm pretty sure grandmas didn't go on the internet and Facebook to put the profile picture and like update all that. So it takes some time. Like if you think about it, we are on the 5th year. We literally just hit 5th year in Ethereum. And I told you before that the Ethereum is growing exponentially. So just imagine where we can be in another 5 years. Wow. So that's the mark. Like in 5 years, that's the mark for me that will be ready for mass adoption. Like that's when grandmas and like even my mom, like I don't want to go that far, right? My mom can go and use Ethereum and at least she'll understand what I'm doing. Because like she asked me this question, so what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know how to explain to you. so she always tells everyone that, oh, what your son is doing, oh, he's a software engineer. I mean, that works, but that's not what I'm actually doing. But so that's like even explaining it, even getting to a point where they can understand the whole process, it'll take at least 5 years. So we are 5 years from that point. And what's stopping them from using it are these like technicalities. Yeah. The moment you say, okay, your private key is 64 characters long, and then the best example that you can give them is like a password. So it's like, it's your password, but it's 64 characters long. They're like, why does it need to be 64 characters long? I don't want to remember a 64 characters long password. And then you go, no, you don't have to remember it. You just have to have it somewhere. You lost them already. Yeah. So it's like, to get to that point, I mean, a lot of millennials and like all new people, they do understand it. Even for them, like it's little difficult because everyone's so used to, like you mentioned, username password model, right? Username password. That's how you log into your account. And the worst case, if you lose it, you have the forgot password option. So we have to make our way towards that. We have to use the existing infrastructure rather than changing the minds of a whole world. So that's why I think like the point in time when we hit that, like have a username password and a forgot password link, that's when we are ready for mass adoption.
Do you think that we could just do an easy branding change and just start referring to public keys as usernames and private keys as passwords? Will that work?
Still, it's really long, so people can't remember it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like my email can be like my username in everywhere. It's like KVHNuke. I can remember it, but like I don't remember my like wallet address. But we are going towards that, right? With ENS names and like .crypto names, unstoppable domains. So we are going towards that. One day we'll combine them together with a password, and which can derive a secure enough private key, and then we are good to go. And then figure out forget password thing. So
so that's one of the funnier things that just reminds me a connection about DeFi, because I understand this space. I don't understand it. Like I'm not no way technical, but I follow this space, and I always have my brothers are always asking me, oh, how's Bitcoin doing? How's Bitcoin doing? And like I don't even know how to tell them, like, dude, we're up to sushi now. We're up to pickle. We're up to like I don't even know how to even begin discussing DeFi or where DeFi is at with them. It would just blow their minds.
Exactly.
Kind of like, but Bitcoin, that's so old news, So I kind of want to get your opinion on that. The current state of DeFi. The potential for DeFi is out of this world. It's really incredible. Really how. When we say banking the unbanked, DeFi is really where that potential is. But right now, the main use case for DeFi really hasn't been that. It's been yield farming and speculation. So I kind of want to get your thoughts on that. Where do you fall in on the space? Is this, yield farming? Is this just, this is us figuring it out, bringing capital in to innovate, or do you see it as something else?
Yep, this is where my opinion gets controversial, because I think the whole thing is
Bring it
overhyped.
on.
It's overhyped.
Yeah.
So DeFi right now is, everyone's using it as an experiment platform, like to experiment things. And literally, like the some of the tokens, they said, this is an experiment, please do not invest in this. And then suddenly, like, it's 500 million invested in that token. It's not, see, like those are the things. So right now, DeFi at a stage where everyone's experimenting, and it's overhyped. And obviously you see, okay, it's 1000% APR, like 500% APR, but it's for a very short amount of time, right? Like it doesn't exist for a whole year. It'll go up and down, and then mostly it'll end up being like 0.1 or like 1% at the end, once everything settles down, because of like the nature. It's, the whole thing is overhyped, and everyone wants to figure out what's next and jump into that. And then they're carrying so much money, and they just want to put it somewhere and then make a little bit of return and then take it out. Unfortunately, like the people, so the people with huge, the whales, right, with huge amounts, they make money from the people who have less amounts. So that's where the yield come from. It's not like we cannot generate revenue, we cannot generate profit from thin air. So it has to come from somewhere. And obviously, like the ETH price is not going up, but like the token prices are correlated. So it's coming from somewhere, and then it's affecting the people who doesn't have that much, or doesn't have enough liquidity, or did not stake enough. So that's unfortunately the case. So this is why I do not recommend any of the newcomers just to jump in to DeFi or Ethereum because of this. There's no, like, if you think, okay, you can have 200%, even 200% APR long term, doesn't exist. It's, if you look at it now, yes, it might say 200% APR, but it's not gonna run for a whole year. So it'll go down. So wait this out. This is like a wave, right? Like there will be so many new things coming up. Suddenly it's like a new topic for everyone, like even developers. Everyone's talking about, oh, how we can improve that, how we can add this, even SushiSwap, right? Like, for example, like they basically copied Uniswap and then added governance token on top of it, and then released SushiSwap. And I'm not going to say what happened, but the founder, or there was this, all that fiasco, right? So it's not, so yeah, just like do your math, do your due diligence. Because obviously, if someone come to you in person and be like, oh, give me $1,000, or like not even 1,000, let's just say $5. Give me, a stranger, right? Give me $5 and then I'll give $10 to you tomorrow. A stranger come to you and you'll be like, no, it's such a small amount that I'm pretty sure no one will be affected if they lose $5, but they're still not going to give it to a stranger. Then why would you go and put your life savings on a project that just came out? So do your due diligence. Like don't be that person who lose funds in this space. It's a big game at the end right now. But that said, DeFi overall, if you look at the big picture, right, go like 30 feet above and then look at DeFi. There were projects since had very long runtime, right? Compound, Aave, Uniswap, although they had like a very good developers up behind it. They've been in the space for a very long time, the really good projects. And if you want to get into DeFi and then understand how it works, start with them and see, and it'll be, the APR is little, but at least your funds are not at a critical stage as the other, like some of the new ones. So, so yeah, start with them. Those are good projects that you can look into, invest, make a decent APR, and go from there. And that's I mean, that's honestly like my opinion. Just wait it out. And this is an experimenting stage. And once this clears down, we will have some good projects. Those are the projects to invest. So right now, everyone's like running around like crazy, but it's time for us to like look at it from from outside not get involved. And then once it clears out, that's when to get involved and like invest and figure out the good projects, best projects to put our money in.
And if we're comparing things, to traditional finance, so me, I have money. I have some money in my wallet that in my physical wallet that I go to the store and I spend, and I also have money in savings that I hope are accruing interest over time, because I don't need it today. I don't need it tomorrow. I need it in the future, and I want it to gain value as it sits there. So right now, MyEtherWallet, the options are only just that wallet part. You put it in the wallet. You're able to use it pretty easily if Ethereum's not too congested. You're able to use it pretty easily and spend it. There isn't really that savings option. And you mentioned a number of these DeFi projects that you do believe in. And so once, not yet, but once the dust does settle and the hype does quiet down in DeFi, and some of these projects prove that they actually could bring a regular, not sky high, but a regular, legitimate APY that's relatively consistent. Can you see MyEtherWallet offering kind of like a checking and savings account where, the checking account is the regular classic MyEtherWallet, you hold your coins, you spend it.
Sorry.
Yes, no problem. Where the classic, the checking account is a classic MyEtherWallet where, you just have, you have your crypto to spend wherever you want, but then also kind of a savings option for MyEtherWallet users where it does put it into one of these projects and does return on interest?
Yeah, so we actually currently do have it, even though it's not like marketed enough in a way. We have our integration on MyEtherWallet, where you can, deposit on a solid, stable revenue on that. But the main reason why we're not marketing it as much as we want to is because we are working on our version 6. So version 5 right now, the MyEtherWallet web version that you go to is feature frozen. So we are not adding any new features to it. We are working on version 6, which should come out hopefully within like the next 2 months. And with that's heavily DeFi focused, not the hype, but the stable. Like it's basically what you described. You can have savings accounts, you can have checking accounts, hot wallets, and all that. It's heavily DeFi focused. You can figure out which is the best platform to invest right now, which might give me a good APY in return, and all that. So that's what we are going towards. And then, but the new wallet also, we are like internally, it's a feature that being discussed, how people can invest in some of these like Aave or Compound and then earn an interest in return. So it will be there in the future. Users can look forward for it.
Now, I want to bring, maybe some people don't know this. Or haven't realized, have been watching, don't care. But, it seems like a lot of people, when they turn to the crypto space, they say, you have to be self-sufficient. It's on you. You have to hold your keys. If you send it if you invest in a DeFi project that collapses because of a bad bug, too bad, it's your fault. You should read the contract. And a lot of people from the outside say, well, that's a little bit too harsh. Not everyone, you can't rely on everyone to check everything. You can't, and not everyone is self-sufficient. You have to be there to help them. And so they believe that centralized authorities and centralized organizations are there to help the individual when they do need help. And sometimes that works. Sometimes, you look at governments and that works in a lot of ways. But I want to highlight one point where it fails. And that is with the MyEtherWallet's Twitter account. For those who don't know, MyEtherWallet Twitter account, you guys were locked out of the account for how long was it?
Almost 2 months.
Almost 2 months. You want to tell the story real quick?
Yes, that's a very good story to say. Tell everyone actually. So basically on the day of the Twitter hack, I think it was on July 15th, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So a whole bunch of accounts got hacked, like Elon Musk's account got hacked, Joe Biden's account got hacked, a whole bunch of accounts got hacked. And so basically like we took all the precautions, right? Like everything that was recommended, like or disconnect all, revoke access to all third-party access, like the accounts that you have given permission to in Twitter. So we did all that. And then suddenly, after like, I don't know, like 30 minutes since like the whole thing started happening, it logged me out of, like, I have it on my phone, the Twitter account. It logged me out of that Twitter account, and then also logged me out of the desktop one. And I'm like, okay, what happened? What the first thought was obviously, okay, our account also got hacked, right? Now we have to let everyone know, don't follow anything that says on the Twitter account. And then, but I went on, and then it didn't tweet out anything. It didn't tweet out or send Bitcoins here, unlike the other hacked account. But like, I could not log in anymore to our, using our Twitter email address. It said, okay, no accounts are associated with this email. And I think that's also around the same time Twitter actually figured out, okay, there's a hack happening, and then they somehow did something to stop it. So the hackers, this is like, Twitter never told me anything about like exactly what happened. This is my assumption. So I'm assuming like, okay, around the same time they figured out what's happening, so they stopped any hackers or anyone from tweeting out from the hacked accounts. But even though they said, okay, they solved the issue for all the 20 verified accounts, our account was a verified account. So it did not, like, our account didn't have access for 2 months. So they did say that after a while. They said, okay, like all the 20 verified, some 20 plus verified accounts are fine. Like we returned access back to the original owners, but that wasn't the case for us. And every day from that, like from July 15th for like a week, I opened new support tickets, and none of them, like it didn't go anywhere. It's just, I'm opening them, no one's responding. And then 2 weeks in, what we were able to do, we were like, okay, this is not going anywhere. We need access to our Twitter account. So we put a big pop-up on MyEtherWallet saying, hey, since July 15th, we no longer have access to our Twitter account. Please help us by retweeting this tweet. So we received about 8,000 retweets, okay?
Wow.
So I'm not joking. Like, we received about 8,000 retweets and still no response from Twitter.
Wow.
Like, we tagged Twitter support, we tagged Twitter, we tagged @verified, everything. Still no response from Twitter with 8,000 retweets. And eventually, like after a while, like after, like when it was super close to 2 months, and at this time I gave up, how to figure out other avenues to communicate with our users, because I'm extremely glad nothing security critical happened over that period of time, because if that happened, we did not have a way to communicate that to our users, and which would have been devastating. So, but like at that point, like it was about to hit 2 months or so, and then nothing. And suddenly I received out of nowhere, like I received an email from Twitter, who actually saw our pop-up, a person from Twitter who saw our pop-up, and were like, okay, I might be able to help you out, and started the chain. So within like 10 minutes from that point, someone from this Twitter support responded to the email, and they actually opened a new ticket. They couldn't find any of the 7 support tickets I opened over the week, right? So they opened a new ticket, they responded me like within 30 minutes or so from that point, it was restored. So I'm happy that Twitter employees are also using, like in a way they're using MyEtherWallet. So they ran into the pop-up. But also the other sad part is that this is a problem. Like if we lose access, we have to depend on them, and which took almost 2 months for a verified account to restore the access. So which is extremely sad.
Yeah, I mean, and once again, this is you know the idea of because relying on this centralized entity, it's also a single point of failure. Like you said, you guys did everything right in securing your account, and it was actually an internal Twitter tool that the hacker used to attack those accounts. Nothing anyone could do, and that's a single point of failure. So. But on the other end, like you mentioned, it's so crucial for a lot of these decentralized projects and platforms and protocols to communicate with their community, both to update them on new features and new ideas, but also to protect them, like you mentioned, from security flaws and issues where you could say to the community and update them, watch out about this, watch out about that. So has this event highlighted the need for, you know, a truly safe and decentralized means of communication with communities? I mean, at this point, it's these amazing decentralized cryptosphere that's still relying on these centralized platforms communication. When are we going to see that really change?
Once we figure out how to handle a massive amount of transactions.
It all comes back to that. Yeah.
It all comes back to scaling, right? Because at the end of the day, in order for a truly decentralized system to work, you cannot give it for free, because then people will abuse it. Like, then you can DDoS and do all these different types of attacks. You have to charge a small enough fee. It's not too much. It doesn't affect people, but at the same time, it prevents the whole system from abuse. And at the same time, with like 12 to 13 transactions per second in Ethereum, that cannot be done. So it has to be a layer 2 solution that can handle massive amount of transactions, that'll also charge a small enough fee from the user for, like, let's say I'm talking about a platform similar to Twitter, right? There's also like this Peepit, that's a platform, truly decentralized. It's similar to Twitter, but I don't think it's that popular. Maybe I'm wrong. But it's probably because of these issues, right? Because like the transaction fees are too high, and it's not worth it to send a tweet with like tweet that cost $5 to send. It's obviously not
definitely wouldn't scale on Ethereum today. But yeah, a lot of people don't realize that right now when they're using those centralized platforms to send messages, they are paying. They're paying with their data. It isn't free. They're paying with their data, except that now the company, the centralized entity that's running those servers get to own their data and sell it and make money. So, you know, do you see there being a blockchain solution where it's a messaging service that you're not paying, you're paying with your data, but you're the one owning your data because however we want to build it on the blockchain. But do you see a future where, you know, people can pay for these services by owning their own data?
Owning their own data and reselling them to only the services that they like, right? Yeah. No, that's a very good, you know, it's definitely going to happen. It's definitely one of the futures that I see, because at the end of the day, your data is valuable. That's what I'd say most of the top Fortune 500 companies do. Like, they sell your data, starting from Google, Apple, Twitter, Facebook. They monetize your data, and that's how they make money. So basically, if a service is free, then you are the product. That's what it is. So and that means your data, your private, your personal information, everything you do, your activities, they have a value, and you should be able to sell it to the services that you want to sell it to. Obviously, like, if you don't want, you know, it makes sense, right? Because it's self-explanatory. If you don't want your data to be with a service that does election campaigns or whatever, then don't. So we'll get to that point in the future for sure, and then I strongly believe in that.
Well, you know, so we start off with not your keys, not your crypto. I really think we also need to get to a place where not your data, not your life. And I'm excited to see the many innovations that do come from the blockchain and many other spaces to enable that. And Kosala, thank you so much for joining us, for being part of that solution by the amazing work that you did at the beginning of Ethereum and continue to do today with MyEtherWallet. So I appreciate you taking the time to explain to our viewers a little bit about how it works behind the scenes. Thank you for joining us. And for all our viewers at Reimagine 2020, I'm Yonah Hochhauser. Thanks for watching.